Right, so thanks everyone who watched my my previous tench video. I think it's called How to Catch Specimen Tench. If I can't work out how to put a link just here, then there will be a link in the description below this video. There is no catch-all miracle rig that works all the time. That is the rig that I catch the majority of the fish on, or the tench on, but it does have its limitations. Being a helicopter rig, it really does need the line to be laid fairly flat to present it correctly. It's not particularly good rig for fishing in the margins, over the end of gravel bars, or later on in the season when there's a lot of weed, and obviously between you and the spot that you're fishing, your line's going over the weed and then down to your hook bait. This year has been rather unusual. Obviously we've got the coronavirus, and we've had the lockdown, so the season started a lot later than normal rather. I'm a multi-species angler, so usually my tench fishing finishes around the beginning of June when the fish spawn, so the helicopter rig that I showed you in the previous video usually does me for the majority of my fishing. This season I've not been able to start the tench fishing until June. Fortunately, it's quite a large pit I'm fishing and the tench have spawned a bit later, so I've had a few weeks to go at them, but because it is later in the year there's a lot more weed, so the helicopter rig wasn't working. I started with it and I was losing fish where the helicopter rig is hanging down and trailing into the weed. So I've changed over to inline rigs, and what we'll do is we'll give you a little bit of information on those and how to tie them, so that you've got a rig then that you can use throughout the summer if you are fishing through tench beyond the end of May, beginning of June, through the remainder of those summer months. So let's show you what we do. Right, I'll do my best to show you this as smoothly as I can. I've got no fancy grip, so I'm just holding the camera by hand. This is the basic inline rig that I'm using. This particular one is using maggots directly on the hook. So we got a size 10 hook with 3 maggots. I'm using a liner or a kicker. You don't necessarily need to use that. It does help turn the hook, so it grabs hold, and I'm finding that I'm getting the hook holds that are that little bit further back in the mouth. If you're not going to use a liner, then it's probably worthwhile using a hook with a slightly in-turned eye, but definitely tie it knotless knots, and that will help the hook turn and catch a hold. I'm using a coated braid. Make sure it's stiff or semi-stiff. The last centimetre or 2 is stripped, so that obviously gives the hook some flexibility. There's a sleeve here which just helps with the anti-tangle, so it pushes the hook link away during the cast. We've got an inline feeder, maggot feeder, block end. There's lots out there. I like these Drennan large feeders. The only issue you may have with these is if you've got a fairly strong crosswind, and then they do tend to kite and sail. Aside from that, they're really very good. I use some tungsten tubing to help pin the rig behind it, and because we're using this rig later in the year and there's more of this weed about, we're using a 15-pound main line. Now this is the other variant that I'm using. In this case I'm using a worm kebab on the hook, but you could just as easily use maggots, or if small fish are a nuisance, roach and rudd etc. in your venue, then use a soft, I would definitely use a frozen glugged boilie. Tench aren't keen on hard baits, they just don't have the phalangeal teeth to be able to deal with them, or sweet corn. But as I say, in this case I'm using the worm kebab. I've got a size 10 wide gape. It's actually called a crank, but you want a wide gape pattern hook. Again, I'm using the liner. As with the maggots, it's not necessary, but do make sure you're tying it knotless knot with an in-turned eye to help that hook turn. Now the main difference I've got on this one is that I'm actually using a boom. So this is a Combi rig, again taken really from the Cart Boys book. So we've got a stiff boom of fluorocarbon, which means that the hook bait is always pushed away from the feeder, and tangles are very rare, which can be one thing that's an issue with inline rigs. But tangles are very rare on this particular one. I've crimped this. It's nice and neat and tidy and very, very strong. And then I've got just an inch or so, or a few centimetres of soft sinking braid on the end that gives that hook flexibility. What I am finding that if you fish in a venue where you're catching a lot of fish, I tend to change the hooks regularly, and when tied with in a normal fashion with braid all the way through, not only am I getting through a lot of hooks, but I'm getting through a lot of hook link material. Whereas one of the advantages of this, apart from being ruthlessly efficient at hooking and not losing fish, is that when it comes to changing the hook, I just need to snip off an inch or so of braid and tie on a new hook, and this stiff link will last several sessions. And then from the feeder up, it's exactly the same as on the previous rig with the tungsten tubing and the inline block end feeder. Probably worth noting that the swivel is semi-fixed inside the feeder, so often on the takes, but certainly if you were to lose the fish or it goes through weed, that pops out, so the fish is never left tethered and carrying the feeder, but you've got the weight of the feeder that's going to act as a bolt effect. This is the underwater footage of both the rigs. Obviously this one's the coated braid with the maggots tied directly on the hook, and you'll see what a good job that braid did of pushing the hook link out and straight so that it was cocked and fishing, even despite the terrain that it's fishing over. This is dropped in the margins and the rocks are fairly large, so it is particularly challenging, but you'll see the hook link and the tungsten tubing are doing a good job at keeping everything pinned down and out the way. This is the Combi rig. Obviously the hook link is a lot less visible in this. The majority of it is a fluorocarbon material. The hook bait, the worm kebab, is a lot more visual, so aside obviously having the scent attraction, I think there's a big visual attraction there as well, which is probably why on its day it can outfish the maggot. What we're going to do now is we'll have a look at some of the fish we caught, and at the end it'll be a step-by-step guide on how to tie these two rigs. Right then, so following lockdown, the syndicate I'm on for tench didn't open until the 1st of June. We're on the 2nd now. I fished started yesterday morning. I lost the first 2 or 3 fish, messed around with the rigs, landed one about 6 pounds that had spawned out, lost another fish, and then this morning I've managed this one here, which is only just short of my double figure target. It's quite warm, so I'm going to get some very quick photographs and then we're going to slip her back. We've come back, we're 4 days later than the last session where we had a 9 something. It's a lot colder now. I would want to be down the other end of the lake because the tench tend to be down there when it's cooler, and this is the corner they get into when it's really warm. Unfortunately the carp do exactly the same, so all the carp boys have headed down the end, and it's chocker, there's not a single swim available, so I've ended up back in the same swim, and I was thinking it's going to turn warm in a couple of days, so maybe I was going to intercept them, but the tench haven't read the rule book, and it has been non-stop. We have been catching fish literally one after the other and not been able to keep the fish in the rods in the water. Bearing in mind this is my boy's 2nd night fishing session, so he doesn't understand the significance of this, and I'm sure thinks that these type of fish come along every other session. What we have here, Edgar, is a 10 pound 1 ounce tench. What do you think of that fish? Is it a bit bigger than those other ones we were having?
Yeah, so.
It's a bit of a beast, isn't it?
But the eel was bigger.
The eel was longer, this one is heavier. It's lovely colours, isn't it? What a lovely dark black. There we go. Right, the rods are going mental, so I'm going to get some photographs. We're going to get this one back, otherwise we're in danger of having a run while we're stood here before we took any photographs. So on last look. First double caught with my son on his 2nd night. I'll let this one slip away. bit of room in that one as well.
I like to go away.
Lovely colour, that one. Oh, is that a rock? Over the rock, go on. You can get over the rock. And off she waddles. I've had a bit of a manic session. It has been non-stop. We actually had to wind in and stop fishing at about 3 o'clock last night because we weren't going to get any sleep.
I would.
Yeah, but I needed to be awake to look after you today, didn't I? Oh look, see all the maggots it's pooed out, look at that. Wow. It's been eating a lot of maggots, that one. We had this one was £9.5. Let's get some photographs and get her back, yeah? Alright, let's look at the camera then. You going to smile? So we're still on Edgar's second night fishing session, and on top of having a double figure tench, he's now been party to the catch of 16 pounds and 4 ounce bream. I'm sure he must think that this is normal, but I may just have found my new lucky charm. You're going to be come fishing with me all the time. Right, this one definitely warrants some pictures, so we're going to get some photographs of this and then we're going to get her back. Right, Edgar, take some photographs. Getting close to me. Now hold it until it's focused, that's it. So we're taking it in turns to get these fish in, and Edgar's just had this fish.
No, I haven't. I didn't even catch it.
Well, you did, then it got stuck in the weed, didn't it? And then I helped him. And that was an £8, 6 ounce male. Right there. You're going to try and hold it and then we'll do a quick couple of pictures. Be quick then, yep. As we were dealing with that fish, the left hand rod went off, and
I did it.
This was on the end. Not quite a double, just a couple of ounces short this one.
What number did it weigh?
Just under £10. Right, it's really hot, so we're going to get her photographed and then we're going to get her back as quick as we can.
Oh, we didn't photograph the other one with my camera.
We're taking turns, and Edgar just had this one. £8.2. Looks like this one might have actually already spawned. But having a pretty good average size, and hopefully we can get something bigger. This is what do you think? Is that a girl or a boy? Why is it a girl?
No.
It's got no lumps, and what about the fins? They're not spoony and they're a bit smaller, aren't they? Right, let's get that one back.